Welcome to a very action-packed edition of This Week in Missouri Politics, coming off a very busy week for the interim session leading into 2016. And speaking of 2016, we are very happy today to be joined by candidate for governor on the Republican side, businessman, Marine, Republican candidate John Bruner. Mr. Bruner, welcome.
Good to be with you. You know, in the Marine Corps, the challenge would be lead, follow, or get out of the way, and I'm ready to lead.
Well, this is a particularly spirited weekend here in Missouri with the playoffs starting on both sides of the state, but mostly the Cubs Cardinals. You're running for governor, and tell us why.
Well, I tell you, we all know the state of our economy, the state of Missouri. We're losing jobs, our roads are crumbling, our schools are failing. It all stems from a lack of leadership. My entire life experience has brought me to this point, to this mission, and I'm ready to lead and get the job done. You know, unfortunately, we have folks out there who are politicians. They're looking for a promotion. There's some that are looking to launch a political career. I'm looking to do a job for Missouri, and the job I want to do is get jobs back in Missouri.
You've been a manufacturer. What would make you locate a manufacturing outlet in a state? What are you looking for?
Well, I tell you, my grandfather came here in 1908, and that's an important year because that's the same time the Cubs showed up to win anything. But he moved from Virginia to Missouri because he saw this as a distribution hub of America, that he could ship products all over the country. He had $400, an 8th grade education, and he felt Missouri was the right place, and it's proven right. It's a great place for business, but unfortunately, we've been slip-sliding away. We're in 47th place. We need a business person for the first time in about 100 years to get in and get the state turned around.
So there's a narrative about you that you've helped build this very successful business that, even though it started on kind of a unlucky, dark year, the last year the Cubs won the World Series in the last millennium, you've built it. It was built into a very successful business. There's a narrative, I think some folks think, that you were born on third base. Walk us through kind of how you built this company. I mean, there's an article in Missouri Times about you, and where it wasn't always as easy as it may have been at the end. Walk us through some of the development of that company and some of your personal struggles.
Well, the opposition always wants to put me out of touch, but I've been on the plant floor for 3 decades. I was an infantry officer in the Marine Corps. You know, that time during the Vietnam era, people were trying to avoid getting out of the military. When I would get home, I actually got spit on, yelled at. Those were tough times here. And my father, I kept extending my tour in the Marine Corps. My father said, we need help. This business my grandfather started is in trouble. Would you please come home and lend a hand? It's in Wellston. It's a tough area of town. And I had no idea how bad things were. And we just rolled up our sleeves. My wife and I, literally, we came in painting, cleaning, fixing. I did every job in that plant, from cleaning the bathrooms to putting tar on the roof. And I got to be a pretty good mechanic because about every production line out there was a rust bucket. So we had a lot of tough years, a couple good years, and it was a roller coaster back and forth. We got hit by the federal inspectors, the FDA, the regulators came in, the tax, all the issues that any small business person would have. So it was a lot of challenges, a lot of opportunities, a lot of struggle, hard work. And during that time, I was making car payments and house payments and raising 3 kids, all on a salary that wasn't much different than what I was making in the Marine Corps.
You know, there's one thing I find that's interesting about a small business person and even a larger business person. People don't think about where their taxes go, but every second a business person works, it's so they can pay a government to fill another cubicle, to have another person calling mostly to harass them or to take their profits and squander. Do you think the fact that you actually know that, okay, I have to work an extra 5 minutes a day for a government I don't want or need, do you think that gives you a better insight? Will it be easier for you to cut government because you know what it really does?
Well, my whole life, the survival of this business was based upon efficiency, competition. I mean, we're a tiny little company competing with multi-billion-dollar corporations all across America, personal care products. And if we didn't find ways to be efficient and cost competitive to compete against these big people, we'd never exist. It's in my nature.
But there's a part of that, though. A lot of Republicans at Lincoln, they talk about cutting taxes. And then when it comes down to the last 2 weeks of session, want to impose new regulations, or they don't want to cut because you know what it means for the government to have another person in a cubicle emailing and mailing your business and calling you to bug you. Will it be easier for you to cut government?
Well, folks are always looking for cuts, and cuts are sometimes the easiest solution. But really not necessarily would bring the productivity and what we need to do to get the state turned around. Every time I've gone into the business, I've never cut people. You find out where's the duplication, where's the
turn the
waste.
state around with the burdensome number of government employees, basically taking from business owners to harass business owners.
Well,
don't you have to cut some of those positions?
Well, first of all, you got to get in there and find out who's doing what. Is there duplication? Where's the lack of efficiencies? Where's the waste? Sometimes you have two teams doing exactly the same job. And what I would do, as I did in my business, let's align up clear accountability, have a plan, execute that plan, and do more with less with better quality. You know, government by nature is a monopoly, and they don't think this way. The only way to get state government turned around is to get a competitive business person in there to organize folks in teams with clear direction.
So let me ask you, running a Republican primary, this may be the only show where we ask you the three questions I think most folks care about. Let's talk first guns. I assume you're pro-Second Amendment. That's always been part of your speech?
A pro-Second Amendment, and of course this goes way back. I was a pretty good shot in the Marine Corps as well, both pistol and with the M16.
Walk me through here. So even like an AK-47, where do you believe the line is where you should limit what kind of weapons you should have?
Well, let's go back to the fundamental principles, the Second Amendment here. The Second Amendment was in there to protect the First Amendment and all the other amendments on the unfortunate situation that could happen in any democratic republic that's out there. But I truly believe that this is our fundamental right, and I believe that the restrictions and everything that's in place here right now is, some of these I disagree with, but we need no more restrictions. We need to continue to protect and defend our Second Amendment rights. It is our constitutional principle here, and everybody wants to come in on the event of horrible tragedies that happen and say, you know, we need to outlaw guns or restrict guns. It is not the guns that are causing the problems here. So I'm a firm Second Amendment person. I love a little skeet shooting. I've done a little bit of hunting, and you know, I have for self-protection as well.
Let's talk taxes. Are the citizens of Missouri overtaxed?
Well, let's put it this way. Our budget has grown 60% in 10 years, and the wages of Missourians have not grown at all. So we got a disproportionate, huge growth in government, no growth in wages. My belief is let's get the wages, let's get the jobs coming back into Missouri, and let's get the job done. And then you look at the taxes, we need to be a lot more efficient with what we're doing. I believe we can come in there and find efficiencies and begin to lower our tax rate, just like what's happened here 3 or 4 days ago. They found $300 million, and everybody wants to spend it. It's not found money. I mean, this should go back to the citizens. This is the mentality of political people who've never been in business.
So will Missourians, can they look for a tax cut under Governor John Bruner?
They will look for tax reduction incrementally. As we find efficiencies, we pass the money back to the people. Find more efficiencies, another tax cut, more efficiencies. But I tell you, we have one huge problem that we have failed as our legislature and as our governors in the past to get our roads and infrastructure and our bridges in place. We have one heck of a job ahead of us. We have a 20-year project, multi-billion-dollar project here, and we need to come up with a long-term plan to get that solved.
You mentioned the legislature. You've mentioned ethics as in your speech as part of your platform. Walk me through what you believe the ethics law should be for the legislature, or statewide officials too.
Well, the first issue is we have to regain the confidence and respect of the people of Missouri with our legislature and our state house. And on the very first day of office, I will issue an executive order banning gifts, travel junkets, all the things that go on in Jefferson City between the lobbyist and the legislature. And let's get back talking business, not entertainment.
So you're saying a dinner, a drink, a ball ticket, all that.
A newspaper, a cup of coffee.
All that would be banned by a lobbyist giving that to a legislature.
Listen, I've seen it happen in our industry. It is amazing. When the largest retailer in America came through with that policy, everybody started talking business.
Now, will the government have to abide by that? There was a big legislator day at the state university. Will those things be banned too? Will the government have to abide by that rule?
Well, every issue here's the way I look at it. If the average citizen doesn't have that benefit, why would a state legislator or people who work in the government offices in the state?
Let me tell you one thing I've observed. There was a person that does investigations in another state, and they said that they had people move. An FBI agent was leaving Missouri, going to their state, because in Missouri everything's documented. So there's very little corruption because just document it. Do you think the transparency that people can go see what's being done is better than if you ban it all and then you kind of wonder. Will anybody trust that?
Well, I like the word no. Nothing. You don't have to spend hundreds and hundreds of hours documenting what you took and how much you took and where you listed. If it's just no, we don't operate business that way. There's a professionalism we need to bring back. Let's understand we have to earn the respect back of the citizens of Missouri. So this might sound a little hard, but it's the right thing to do. And it's a first stepping stone in terms of reestablishing confidence in our legislature.
Sure. Lastly, how's the campaign going? I mean, I know you're just announced, but you had an exploratory phase. How's the fundraising going? How is your campaign being absorbed by the people of Missouri?
Well, it's absolutely fantastic. I truly have seen firsthand that folks are looking for a business person who's actually brought billions of dollars of business back into Missouri, created thousands of lifetime jobs, a breath of fresh air, not just being an outsider. Hey, we're all outsiders, but an outsider who has the skills and experience to get the job done. Our fundraising is going very well. We've raised more money right now than I did in the whole U.S. Senate race. That momentum is continuing to build. We will continue to do whatever it takes to win this race and go forward. At the end of the day, the compelling issue is between our Attorney General as a career politician and a trial lawyer versus a manufacturer and a U.S. Marine. It's a great contrast. It's a contrast that will win.
Mr. Brunner, thank you so much for joining us on This Week in Missouri Politics. We hope to have you back as the campaign goes on.
Good to be with you, and we'll keep fighting all the way for the citizens of Missouri.
Thank you so much, and we will be back with our opinion maker panel, and we'll leave you with this week's economic indicators.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics, the really cool opinion maker panel. And we're started with the second time on our show, Ryan Johnson with Missouri Alliance for Freedom. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Representative Travis Fitzwater, Mid-Missouri, Fulton area ride. Welcome back on the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Kate Casas, a governmental consultant with the Gateway Group, and I guess your last week in Missouri before you head to China, right?
That's right. I'll be headed to China for a month next week.
I would ask if we could do like a correspondent thing there, but I know China and the media, it's not going to work.
No, I have agreed not to do any media while I'm in China. But I'll be happy to talk to you when I get back.
If you could do media, I hope you would do our show.
Absolutely.
So, and then I guess we're very excited to have on Eli Yokley, back in the state, local Missourian, done well, now with Roll Call Ride out in Washington, D.C.
It's good to be back.
We are very glad to have you back in Missouri and here on This Week in Missouri Politics. And let's just start with your observation. I know you keep tabs back here locally, especially maybe a governor's race would still be on your radar. Give us the breakdown. We had John Bruner in. Where's the race at?
It's one of the top governor's races in the country this year. John Bruner is one of many big candidates running in this race, and a lot of people are watching this race. It's the first time in a while it's been up, and the RGA in Washington is getting ready to put a whole lot of money into this. Democrats nationally see this as a target, and they're playing. And you saw Chris Koster last week is engaging his opponents already on this issue, like stem cell, the issue that made him a Democrat. And he's getting his opponents to kind of play into his playbook and trying to score points at this point.
Right, Johnson, your members and your constituency is obviously a group everyone's seeking in this primary. John Bruner made a direct case to folks that I would think would appeal to your group. Does John Bruner pull your group, or does Kinder, Hanway, Greitens even? Who reaches your members?
There are a lot of our members who do like John Bruner. There's no doubt about it. Having said that, though, it's not a lock. There's no consensus amongst conservatives in Missouri yet. You'll see Catherine Hanaway has a fair share of conservative followers as well. Kinder has his own. The person that's probably experiencing the most difficulty right now within the conservative base is Eric Greitens, and that's quite simply because he's an unknown. There's starting to be this growing narrative.
But what is known would maybe be hard for particularly a person that's been a Republican for the last 10 years to take, right? I mean, is that part of what is known is a little bit hard to piece together?
I think the question is, what was his conversion experience from liberalism to conservatism? Now, if you ask him, and I have, he says by 2007 he was a Republican. Having said that, though, if you go back, he was actually on a mailer for a Democratic candidate here in St. Louis as recently as 2013, I believe. So he's got some issues with conservatives, and so far he's not really answered those questions. And so I think there's just a lot of question marks in the minds of conservatives. Is this guy real? Is he legit?
He went to the Democratic National Convention with Bob Holden to see Barack Obama get the nomination. He interviewed with the
Maybe that's what did it, is he heard that speech and was like, I'm out, I'm done.
He interviewed with congressional Democrats in 2010 to run for Congress. The notion that he's been a Republican since 2007 just can't be true.
Those pieces are hard to fit together. Travis says, you're an actually elected official. You've actually went before voters and got elected. I believe Eric Greitens has tremendous communication skills. It seems like some of these things, if the narrative is legitimate, he can communicate that message. But how does he do that, and how do you line it up against a John Bruner?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd say that he's an incredible leader. I mean, he's got a resume that you couldn't write for yourself better than, sure. I mean, you look at his resume, it's phenomenal. So he's, in my opinion, a great leader. And I think the Republican Party ought to be open to these folks that want to change their perspective, change their thought process. Maybe something happens in that. He's a young guy, so maybe something happens in his timeline of being a part of the Democrats that's really frustrating.
Church of no converts doesn't
we
go,
have
right?
We have a Democratic candidate for governor who used to be a Republican not too many years ago.
Right, the Democrats embraced him with open arms, right?
So I think
they have.
Surely
so I think he's a great leader, but Bruner's great. You know, he's also a phenomenal leader, a job creator. He's got a resume that's that really shows that he can do something for the state on the job level. That's really important. I think, from my perspective, Kinder is the one to beat, even without the money, because when you look at 6 really good candidates with a lot of money across the state for Democratic governor or Republican nominee for governor, the person with the most name ID is probably going to have a leg up immediately. And you see Kinder winning these statewide elections without a lot of money in the past. And I think that just name ID with 6 candidates that are really good with a lot of money, his name ID is going to go a long way.
When you tell Peter Kinder to meet you at the Churchill Museum in Fulton, he ain't got to get a MapQuest out, right? He had to put it in his phone. He knows where that is.
No, everybody knows where that is, right?
Kate, on the Democrat side, I would think Chris Koster is probably enjoying the primary a little bit, and clearly he was able to interject and change the message from Kurt Schaefer shutting down an abortion clinic to now all the candidates talking about stem cells, which is something that definitely divides the Republican Party on some level. He's got to be enjoying it.
I think so. I mean, I think Koster is regardless of who wins the Republican nomination, it's going to be tough to beat Koster. And as he's been able to get the stem cell conversation back in the fray, or the Republicans did that to themselves, I'm not sure which. If my recollection is right, that was the issue he used as why he moved from Republican to Democrat, and people supported that decision in 2008. And I think he's making the bet that they'll do that again in 2000.
Eli, give me a prediction. Who wins this primary?
You know, I think Peter Kinder is a very strong candidate right now. Republican primary voters like to think about the Republican primary, and sometimes they forget there's a general election to win. And they've got
they did that in 12, right?
They did that in 12, and you know, you look at a guy like Eric Greitens, who has such a resume, such a good resume, such a compelling figure, probably the guy who could beat Chris Koster in this primary as it stands.
So you think he's the best general election candidate, but Peter Kinder wins primary?
I think that seems like it might happen.
Okay, who wins the primary?
Oh, I don't know. I think Kinder, Hanaway, and Greitens at this point are probably would be the ones I would be betting on if I were going to bet on it. But I think it's wide open.
If you pick 3 of the 4, you have a really good chance to win.
Well, one day I will nail that down to one. But today I'm watching
maybe
those
over the
3.
time on the show until August, you can slowly like peel ones off till it's like the final
Exactly.
person.
I will tell you who I'm dropping. But today I think Kendra's got the name ID. Catherine seems to be doing the work she needs to do, and Greitens has got
Tremendous
the resume.
fundraiser this week at Chuck Casas' house in Kansas City.
So.
Representative, who do you think? Who wins?
Right now, Peter Kinder.
Peter Kinder. Who wins?
Too early to tell. I think Catherine Hanaway is very strong, but
now you can't have the representative make the hard prediction and then you not step up.
It's a long time between now and
Who's
next
best
August.
general election candidate?
I think Catherine Hanaway gives us a nice contrast. She can match his prosecutorial experience head to head. She's a woman. She's a woman of faith. She's a family, has a nice family. Chris Koster is a single man in his 40s, and I just quite frankly don't understand, why or how Democrats can get behind this guy. He's from Cass County. I'm from Cass County. He was our Cass County prosecutor as Republican. He was my Republican state senator. I've known Chris a long time. Chris is no more a Democrat now than he was a Republican then. He's a political opportunist without a moral compass.
I think Catherine Hanaway is one of the weakest candidates in the field right now. With the Schweik drama that happened earlier this year, she took a very incredible blow.
I think there's something to be said for her. She's brought this from one of the most odd situations, challenging situations. You may be right, but I also think there's something to be said for the fact she's persevered, and it's almost a normal race now.
She was the front runner for a long time, I think, and the Schweik thing was a huge blow to her campaign, and it's yet to be seen whether or not she'll be able to make that up.
Let's leave that governor's race there. I'm sure we'll talk about this again. Let's talk about the new energy plan released by the federal government and the state government this week. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, the controversial Clean Power Plan. Missouri gets about 83% of its energy, its electricity, from coal. As this is implemented, it's nothing short of a federal takeover of our energy system, which is completely unprecedented. It is to energy what Obamacare is to health care. And it's frightening, to say the least, especially for lower income and middle income households. This could be punishing as it raises household costs. I think it's incumbent upon Attorney General Chris Koster to join the 15 to 16 other states' attorneys general and file suit against this thing. And I think on the political side, as we were just talking about, that would be smart politics for Chris to do.
Representative, I know the states has a plan that was introduced, and now the House under Representative Miller is working on a kind of a counter-state plan. How does this affect the state? I mean, if you cut taxes, but a business's energy bill goes up, it really doesn't matter.
Oh, well, I think to Ryan's point too, the federal government's doing a lot in the regulatory environment that's jacking prices up in the energy sector, and it will continue to do that if we get rid of our coal plants, which are the cheapest, most sustainable, and the most reliable energy in our state. So that's one piece. Is we hope, and a number of my colleagues have written letters to Attorney General Koster asking him to join these other attorneys general across the state, asking the EPA to back off on these regulations, which will be disastrous for consumers in our state. But on the state level, really, really proud of the work that Rocky Miller has done, state representative from Lake of the Ozarks. The work that he's done to get his name in this new plan the governor released, because part of that plan was based on these committee hearings that Rocky's had over the last couple months around the state. He's gone around the state. The governor's taken some of Rocky's recommendations concerning emerging technology like small modular nuclear reactors. We obviously all want to be environmentally friendly, so solar power is great. That's expanding in homes, households across our state. So I think, one, I'm very pleased to see that the governor's taken some of our committee's recommendations, but there's only an executive summary. So until we get the details of the plan,
you don't know if the devil's there, right?
We don't know where the devil is in those.
Eli, in Washington, is this viewed as Obamacare for energy policy?
It really is, and in states like Missouri and Kentucky, here in the Midwest, it's something that really resonates with conservatives. These are pocketbook issues when you're sitting down to do your budget at home that really speak to voters.
Okay, does it become political where a Republican governor would oppose this, a Republican attorney general would oppose this, but a Democrat want to be slower to?
I don't know. I think we don't even know what Governor Nixon's going to do, and I think Representative Fitzwater's right. I mean, Rocky Miller has done such a great job trying to thread the needle between what's best for the environment and what's best for business and families in Missouri. And I wish that the president and his administration would look at that model, because we're not going to, even for those of us who do really care about the environment, and I do, we're never going to get there unless we make sure that we're not hurting consumers in the pocketbook. And I can't say enough about what Rocky's done, because I think that he has built trust across party lines on this issue, businesses and consumers and the energy companies and everybody. And I think if you just do what the federal government has done and come out with a new regulatory process, which is so complicated for voters to understand, I'm not sure we're going to get there. I'm not sure we're ever going to be able to thread that needle between environmental interests and consumer interests.
Don't you think a swing voter in Jefferson County, a union member, and a small businessman in St. Charles, they're cared about how this economically affects them. Right. They'll let the Sierra Club worry about the rest.
That's right. That's right. And that's where Rocky has really figured out how to not really, I shouldn't say align those interests, because I'm not sure they're going to be totally aligned, but to listen to both of them and like I said, thread that needle between what's going to be best for our environment and what's going to be best for our economy.
I would argue, Eli, maybe not. Some of these people don't want a needle threaded. They want their energy costs to be lower.
They do. President Obama has been making the end of his presidency focused on climate change and addressing this issue. And most scientists agree it's a problem. Nobody agrees on what to do about it. And Obama has been trying to make the case that this is good for the economy to become more environmentally friendly. But that's a hard case to make to voters when they see their energy bills going up.
Two things happen in Missouri every year in the fall: the climate changes and the Cardinals go to the playoffs. Today, just our last topic here, Uber and the Missouri and the Taxi Commission. Is there a state law that steps in and settles this throughout the state, or does this fight continue to go on?
Boy, I hope so. It could. I mean, the state law could certainly solve this issue. I mean, right now, Uber's has filed a complaint with the FTC that they're violating the MTC is violating antitrust commission. The MTC responded this week saying it was an emergency, but yet waited several weeks, saying that they needed a temporary restraining order to stop Uber. I just took Uber to the airport the other day. Loved it. I think that the General Assembly could and should solve this issue before we have a long, drug out fight.
Mayor Slay decided to just not endorse the laws, right? Is that something you can really say? Okay, we'll just not have these laws as a state. We'll just, who does that lift up to what to enforce?
Well, I won't speak to what Mayor Slay is doing here, but I can tell you in the House last year we actually amended a bill that was a regulatory bill for Uber to allow them to work throughout the state no matter what municipalities are doing. And we got the bill passed in the House. The Senate obviously kind of fell apart there at the end of session. But the legislature is very interested in this. If St. Louis can't figure it out, or these municipalities around the state can't figure it out, we want to make sure that citizens have, in a free market environment, an opportunity to use the best tools to travel around our state.
Ryan Johnson, where's your group come down?
We're for the free market, so we wholly and totally support Uber's right to exist and operate. And St. Louis is a wonderful city that's based on innovation with a lot of entrepreneurs. The fact that they're trying to squeeze out or keep out Uber is just beyond me, and it doesn't reconcile with the values of St. Louis.
Could we call you Uber Eli Yokley?
Uber's huge. I use it every day. There were 10,000 riders on Uber last week in St. Louis. 1,000 drivers, small business owners pushing through here, and I think Missouri needs to find a solution to it.
We're very glad to have you back this week. And
it's great to be here.
There on
MIZ.
This week in Missouri Politics. And we'll see you next week here on a very Mizzou-spirited panel.